Daniel sat alone under the wide desert sky, his small fire flickering against the endless night. He had traveled far from home, and though he liked the silence of the open land, sometimes the silence grew too heavy. He thought about his younger sister, Leah, who had moved away to another city years ago. She had once been the closest person to him, always laughing with him, always sharing stories, always standing by his side. But when she left, the bond stretched thin, like a rope pulled too far. He wrote to her at first, but over time the letters slowed, then stopped. Now he felt distant, almost like she belonged to another world. He missed her. The ache was sharp on nights like this, when the stars looked like cold sparks above him. He wanted to see her again, to ask her how she was, to tell her about his own life, but he didn't know how. What words could mend years of silence? What bridge could connect a heart left waiting? As he poked the fire with a stick, he heard a sound, soft, almost a whimper. He froze. In the distance, something moved. At first he thought it was a wild animal, but then a small figure stumbled into the glow of his fire. It was a girl, not human. Her skin shimmered faintly like water reflecting moonlight. Her eyes were larger than his, glowing a pale green. Her hair floated slightly as if stirred by an unseen breeze. She was thin, trembling, and clearly hungry. Daniel's first instinct was fear, an alien, here in the desert. But then he saw how weak she was, clutching her stomach, barely able to stand. His heart softened. He reached into his pack and pulled out the last piece of bread he had saved for the night. He held it out carefully. The girl looked at him, surprised, almost suspicious. Then slowly she took the bread. She sniffed it, then nibbled carefully. When she realized it was food, she ate quickly, her hands shaking. Daniel watched silently. "You must be hungry," he said quietly. She didn't answer, but her eyes softened as she finished the bread. For a while, they sat in silence by the fire. She seemed calmer now, though still weak. Finally, she pointed to herself and whispered, "Lyra." Daniel blinked, then smiled. "Lyra, that's your name?" She nodded. Then she pointed at him, her glowing eyes waiting. "Daniel," he said. Her lips curved into a small smile. For the first time in years, Daniel felt a spark of connection. He had fed a stranger, an alien girl, and yet in that small moment he wasn't alone anymore. He thought of Leah, how they had once shared food, stories, and laughter by fires like this. He realized how simple acts could bridge distances, even impossible ones. The girl leaned closer to the fire, her thin arms wrapped around herself. She looked at him as though trying to decide something. Then softly she said words he didn't expect. "Come. Meet. Mother." Daniel frowned. "Mother?" She nodded firmly. "Mother. Queen." He blinked, stunned. Did he hear that right? Her mother was a queen? Lyra stood shakily, pointing toward the dark horizon. Then she looked back at him, her expression full of hope and urgency. Daniel hesitated. His mind spun. A queen? An alien queen? This was far beyond anything he had imagined. He was just a traveler, just a man trying to find peace under the stars. What place did he have meeting a queen of another world? But then he remembered the loneliness he carried, the weight of distance between himself and Leah. What if this was another chance, not just for him, but for humans and her people too? What if small acts of kindness could mend great distances even between worlds? He stood, brushing dust from his hands. He looked at Lyra, who was waiting, her green eyes shining with trust. He realized he couldn't turn away. "All right," he said softly. "I'll come with you." She smiled, a real smile this time, and for a moment Daniel felt warmth in his chest, a warmth he had been missing for years. As they walked into the desert night together, he felt a strange hope growing inside him. Maybe, just maybe, feeding a hungry girl could open doors he never dreamed of. Maybe it could even teach him how to reconnect with his own sister. The stars above seemed brighter, no longer cold. They looked like paths waiting to be followed. Daniel glanced at Lyra walking beside him. Her steps were light now, her spirit lifted. And though he did not know what awaited them, he felt ready. Because in that moment he understood something simple yet powerful. Kindness was never wasted. It always returned, like light finding its way back through darkness. Daniel walked beside Lyra under the silver light of the moon. The desert stretched, wide and endless, but with her steps beside him it no longer felt empty. She moved with more strength now, her head held higher, her eyes scanning the horizon as if she knew the way. Daniel, though, still felt the old ache inside him. Every time he glanced at her, every time he saw the trust in her face, he thought of Leah, his sister, the one who had moved away. Leah had once looked at him the same way, with faith that he would always be there. And yet, he hadn't been there when she left. He let the years stretch between them like a river too wide to cross. He wondered if Leah ever thought of him when she looked at the stars. He wondered if she missed him too, or if she had learned to live without him. "Daniel," Lyra said softly, pulling him back to the present. Her accent was strange, her words broken, but he understood. She pointed ahead. "Home. Soon." Daniel nodded. "Home," he repeated. The night grew colder, and they stopped by a cluster of glowing stones that gave off warmth. Lyra crouched near them, her hands hovering as if greeting old friends. Daniel sat down too, stretching his tired legs. For a while, neither spoke. Daniel watched the flickering lights on the stones and thought about the fire he used to share with Leah. He remembered how she would tease him for burning marshmallows, how she laughed even when the smoke made her cough. The memory hurt, but it also gave him strength. "Lyra," Daniel said carefully. Why do you want me to meet your mother?" She tilted her head, searching for words. "You gave. No fear, no ask, just gave." Her glowing eyes softened. "Mother must know." Daniel swallowed. He hadn't done anything special, not in his mind. He had given food to someone who was hungry. But to her, it was something greater. "Where I come from," Daniel said slowly, "we call that kindness." She repeated the word carefully. "Kindness." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, kindness." For the rest of the night, he thought about that word. Maybe kindness was the bridge he had been missing all along. Maybe it was the way back to Leah. When the sun rose, the land before them changed. The dry desert gave way to hills covered in silver grass that shimmered like waves in the wind. Strange birds with crystal wings flew overhead, singing in voices that sounded almost human. Lyra walked faster, excitement in her steps. Daniel followed, though his heart beat with unease. What would her people think of him? Would they welcome him or see him as a threat? By midday, they reached a ridge. Beyond it lay a hidden valley unlike anything Daniel had seen before. Towers of stone curved upward like giant trees, woven together by vines that glowed softly. Waterfalls spilled from cliffs into shining pools, and high above, strange guardians with wings of light circled, watching everything. "This, my home," Lyra said proudly. Daniel stood in awe. It was beautiful, alive in a way Earth cities were not, but he also felt dozens of eyes watching him. Shadows moved along the paths. Whispers rose in the air. The people here had noticed him. They walked into the valley. The aliens, tall, slender, with glowing eyes like Lyra, stared as they passed. Some looked afraid, others angry. A few stepped back, pulling children close. Daniel kept his head high, but inside he felt small. He had never been so aware of being human. At the heart of the valley stood a grand palace carved from crystal and stone. Guards in armor that shimmered like water blocked the way. They spoke in their language, voices sharp. Lyra stepped forward, her voice rising. She pointed at Daniel, then touched her chest, speaking his name. The guards looked uncertain, but at last they allowed them through. Inside, the hall was vast, lit by beams of sunlight caught in crystal walls. At the far end, on a throne that seemed grown from living rock, sat the queen. Her presence filled the room. She was taller than the others, her crown woven from strands of light. Her eyes were deep, like oceans filled with both wisdom and storms. Lyra ran forward, bowing. She spoke quickly, her words spilling like a rushing stream. She gestured to Daniel again and again. The queen's gaze settled on him. It was not cruel, but it was heavy, like she could see through him. Daniel's knees felt weak. Finally, she spoke in broken human tongue, her voice calm but strong. Human? Why, here. Daniel took a breath. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to answer. I found your daughter. She was hungry. I gave her food. That is all. The queen studied him for a long time. The court around her whispered, their voices sharp and doubtful. You give, the queen said slowly. Why? Daniel thought about Leah. He thought about the loneliness, the silence between them, and he thought about Lyra, shivering in the desert, taking his bread with trembling hands. Because she needed it, Daniel said simply. Because kindness matters. The hall grew silent. The queen's eyes softened, just slightly. She raised, her hand silencing the whispers. You. Strange, she said. But kind. Lyra beamed, her face glowing with pride. Daniel felt a flicker of warmth in his chest. Maybe he had done something right, something that mattered. But the queen's voice grew serious again. Kindness. Easy. Trust. Harder. You must show. Daniel frowned. Show? The queen nodded. If you wish, walk among us. Help. Then, we see.